Hello everyone, it's Tana. Welcome back to the channel and another video for the Rabbit Hole Designs. Today we have the June release and an exciting new stamp set. So without any delay here, we have Clarence skydiving, and he's got that look of surprise on his face, and he's got the sentiment, "Shoot happens." Then we have the desert background, and that's illustrated by Dustin Pike. And then we have SXS Life. Now this stamp set, I don't remember seeing anything like this on the market. It will definitely come in handy when I'm making cards for the men in my life and the little boys in my life. We have the, we'll talk more about that in a second. We have the Up in Flames stencil, and then we have Rubber Ducky Fishing, or Gone Fishing. I'll put the name on the screen for you because I looked at it twice and I still can't remember. So here are some images that I pre-colored, and I want to tell you a little bit about SXS, Side by Side Life, the stamp set. First and foremost, it will only be available at the Rabbit Hole Designs. You won't be able to find it at Simon Says Stamp or anything like that, because 100% of the profit from this stamp set will be going to fund injured drivers, riders, and families of drivers/riders who have lost their lives, organizations that promote and educate driver and rider safety in the off-road environment. So for the lifetime that this stamp set is in the shop, all the profit will go to fund what I have just said. And I'll put it in the description box below for you. This is a topic that is close to Marianne, the owner of Rabbit Hole Designs, heart, and a very good one indeed, because you don't hear about a lot of help for families who have, whose husbands or wives have been injured in off-roading and stuff like that. So like I said, I'll put it in the description box, but I want to get on to the cards for today. We're going to do two with the SXS Life stamp set, which is a very large stamp set, by the way. I have to measure it. I forgot how big it is. 6 by 8, maybe? And quite a lot of images, I have to say. So I'm doing two different backgrounds here. The first is a gray scale background. And the reason for the gray scale is because I went up to Jackson and I said, he saw these, as I'm preparing for the new release. And he's like, "Mama, those are cool. Are those for me?" I was like, "Well, no, but I can color you some." I was like, "What color do you think I should make these?" And of course, he points to the very first one and says rainbow, which is not a color, it's a spectrum. But, Jackson wanted rainbow, so that's what we had to do. What's going to match with rainbow, guys? So, grayscale was suggested to me, a grayscale background, which I have done once before, actually, with the little cat. The little English-looking cat with his cup of tea or coffee and his umbrella, if you guys remember that card, where the only color on the card was a pop of red. Anyway, moving on. I think this card turned out very well. And then with the other background, we're going to, for the most part, ink blend to try to give it some texture at the same time. Okay, so I showed you the groupings of grays. I pulled out every gray Copic I had. So we're talking neutrals, warm grays, and cool grays. I don't have any toner grays. So those were the three that I had, 3 sets I had to work with. And I tried to give a little bit of depth and dimension at the same time, and things that were farther away were darker, etc. But trying to do that while only working with shades of gray is a little difficult, but I did my best. That's why I'm showing you guys certain parts, certain sections, and how I went about it, in case you want to try, to do this on your own. I tried to make the living things, like the rattlesnake and the cacti, even the skull, even though it's not living per se, it was from a living thing. So I tried to do all those in warm grays. And there's a look at it there. And now I'm going to show you how I did the second background. So I actually stamped this out and then stamped it out on masking paper twice. So the first time I just cut out the main images, the clouds, the cacti, the rattlesnake, the rocks, and the skull. And on the second mask, I cut it out in layers of scene. So I left all that stuff in there and just cut it out as a scene in layers. So here you see me putting on my individual masks so that they would still be there when I peeled up layers. And that did work for the most part until I got up to the clouds. For some reason, they kept peeling themselves up. Anyway, moving on. So here I'm going to start out with Rustic Wilderness Oxide and then Mowed Lawn. And this is where I discovered I should probably have a mask here because it doesn't go all the way across. So I placed that second layer of the mask on and went ahead with my 2 shades of green. I went in with the darker first and then lightened up a little with the Mowed Lawn. Got it. I can't leave the reveals out, you guys. They're just too good, you know. So I just moved up. So as I moved up, I replaced the masks. Made sure that the top, above and below of what I was ink blending was always covered. So I used, what did I just see up there? Tea-dye, Gathered Twigs, and Vintage Photo, I believe. In that order for that first layer of desert sand. And as I moved up, you know, and farther away, picture-wise, image-wise, I went a little bit darker. So for the next layer, we will start with, I believe, the Gathered Twigs and leave the tea-dye out completely. I had to place on my masks there for the next set of images. And for the most part, I didn't have trouble lining up the masks. I did fairly well. It was pretty easy. Now we're going to go on with our Gathered Twigs and Walnut Stain. That's right. There was only 2 that time around. And then as we start to get even further away, I will get into, I think I add another color because there just wasn't enough dark browns that I had pulled out. And I'll tell you what those are in a second. More reveal. Comment below, let me know who thinks that revealing, peeling masks off and revealing is probably the best part of videos that have that particular thing in them. So Gathered Twigs and Walnut Stain again, but I think I went a little bit heavier with the Walnut Stain because, again, it was further away in the image. And then for the Grand Canyon-like mountains in the background, I believe I added in ground espresso. And I just added, like I did with the one layer before it, more ground espresso than anything, but more towards the bottom of the mountains, because if they're shadowed over, if there's a mountain or a hill in front of that, you're going to see shadow from that mountain or hill. So that's why I added more towards the bottom and kept it lighter towards the top where it meets the sky. So if you love off-roading, if you love driving side-by-sides or razors or whatever you call them, or quads, or any recreational vehicle, if you know a family who could use help, if you want to support these families, even though you don't know any families that ride recreational vehicles, make sure you go to the Rabbit Hole Designs and you pick up the stamp set, because it's not 10%, it's not 40%, it's not half of the cost. 100% of the cost of the stamp set is going towards these families. So they can use all the support you can give them. And I will make sure I have a link to the stamp set and to the website in general down in the description box for you guys. So moving on to the sky, I used, sticking with the oxide still, I laid down a light layer of tumbled glass first, and then I went in with my bitty blending brush and added some salty ocean to that. And my clouds are masked, so I'm not inking them blue. And here's the final look here. And here's a final look at the grayscale background. And now they're all trimmed down so they can go onto their corresponding panels. And this one's cut down to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And this one is cut a little wonky. I can put this, if I remember, I'll put the measurements on the screen for you guys. I cut it with the second largest or the largest Lawn Fine stitched rectangle die, but because of the cardstock, it looks more like a cartoon strip, so the die didn't cut into the top and the bottom, only the sides, and I kind of liked the way that looked. So as you can tell, it's a little longer on the edges, and there's more of the black card base showing on the top and bottom. And then I popped up the ink blended backgrounds razor on foam tape and put that in the bottom left corner. And the other one's glued straight to the panel, the rainbow razor, and that's in the bottom right corner. And then I decided to ink up a whole bunch of sentiments here since I was heat embossing. Used my powder tool there first, and I'm using some Wow Superfine Bright White Opaque embossing powder. And I did a few sentiments there. I wasn't sure what I wanted. I also did a few on white cardstock, and I did those with Nouveau Hot Chocolate embossing powder, which is like a dark brown. And those turned out pretty cute as well. So for the grayscale card, I used Trust Me, I Know All the Best Trails. And that's on the front of the card. And then on the inside, I put this gray piece of cardstock here. And I used another sentiment because I couldn't help myself. And it says, "Here, hold my beer." So could you imagine that conversation in the side-by-side? Trust me, I know all the best trails. Here, hold my beer. Let's do this, you know. And then on the other one, the ink blended background, I put That'll Buffer It Out. And both of those are popped up with foam tape. And that's it for this video, guys. Don't forget to check out the Rabbit Hole Designs on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, and don't forget to check the Design Team's Inspiration all month long for each new release. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you liked what you saw here today. And we will see you in the next video. Bye-bye for now, guys.